Hey guys, welcome to my channel for this week's Tune Update. Today I'm talking about the Chelsea result. I'm also going to talk about the prospect of Jetro Willems heading back to Newcastle, and then I'm going to finish with a preview on the Crystal Palace game, including the latest injury updates. So do enjoy the video and remember to subscribe for more. Let's get started. So let's start with the Chelsea game. I guess in a nutshell, it ended 2-0, and I probably say this every single week, but if it wasn't for Callum, the scoreline, it could have been even worse. I think we actually got off lucky with 2-0. Just to concede 2 goals. So in the first half, the pressure from Chelsea was intense from the get-go, so much so that we saw an early own goal from Fede Fernandez. I guess he just failed to hold his nerve in front of goal up against Ben Chilwell, and the ball found the back of the net. Callum was on top form as usual. Before half-time, he stepped up to make 2 crucial stops, and it didn't surprise me to find that we'd managed just 18% possession in the first half. I honestly couldn't believe we were only 1-0 down at that point. In the second half, we kind of came alive for a while. There was somewhat of an improvement in terms of our attacking intent, and very, very slight improvement. Joelinton had one of the 2 missed chances, and he lacked an impact apart from that, so nothing out of the ordinary there, unfortunately. Tammy Abraham, he got the second goal in the 65th minute, and it could have easily been 3. Werner, he scored, but his goal was disallowed. The 2 of them actually just sliced through our defence at ease. Callum actually faced 14 shots in total. What positives can I take away? It's obviously tough to think positive with a poor run of form. Actually, you know what? It's not just a poor run of form, really, is it? It's an ongoing issue, our style of play, our lack of fight, lack of belief, lack of direction. I just feel discouraged, and it's hard to get excited to watch the lads play without the fundamental issues being addressed at the club. And I guess I talk about this every single week, so I'm not going to go into all of that. It's just our inconsistent displays this season. They've been exhausting to follow. Against Man United, truly awful. Wolves, we saw signs of improvement, at least defensively, and then I guess it was a lucky point in the end. Up against Everton, it was a decent show, and then Southampton, terrible. 2-0, we only made 4 shots on target, for God's sake. And against Chelsea, I didn't think a win was likely, but I did hope that 2 weeks of training and rest during the international break could do the squad some good, and we'd perhaps see some glimpses of attacking football like what we saw against Everton in small doses, or even we might see some organisation, a game plan of some sort. I feel like if we saw more Everton-like performances, at least we can just sort of head in a direction and get clarity on our long-term plan to evolve. The tactics always seem to be the short blanket. Anyways, despite my mood right now on our current form, I do have a couple of positives actually that I can't ignore. Callum, obviously being one of them, he really did what he could to keep the score down. I just wonder, how does it feel for him going into every match knowing he'll more than likely be subjected to periods of sustained pressure? He's not protected. He can't rely on the back line. He's currently still topping the table for the most Premier League saves with 41. And quite frankly, I just feel bad for him. He adds tremendous value to the team. And in my opinion, he's doing a superb job covering Martin Dubravka, who has really set a goalkeeping standard which unfortunately we've grown dependent on. Anyways, next up, I have to talk about Sean Longstaff. He really impressed me actually, and I'm rooting for him to revive the form that we once witnessed before injury. I think so far, since getting league starts again, his displays, they've been promising. And against Chelsea, I mean, he was the brightest spark. He looked focused, he looked determined on the ball, regardless of, you know, the disorganisation and chaos around him and the defensive mishaps. I just crumbled when I saw his opportunity to score going in vain. He made an attempt from long range, but his 30-yard drive just rattled the woodwork. Very, very unfortunate to hit the bar. I guess one more positive before I move on. Alan St-Maximin, he seems to be on the up, and in recent weeks I've been kind of concerned with his form. He hasn't quite been... he hasn't looked as dangerous on the ball, and he's failed to really make an impact in our games. But against Chelsea, I definitely saw a more convincing performance. He was starved off the ball, but I had a little bit of faith in him being the game changer that we needed when trailing. But he was taken off with 15 minutes to go. Was that to save him for the Crystal Palace game on Friday? What was the reason? I really don't know. To me, it was a questionable move. I guess given ASM looks like the only one on the pitch who was most likely to create anything, and when ASM is in that mood, I think you've just got to trust him to give it a go. Whether or not he's starved of service, he can be a threat when he wants to be. Anyways, moving on. Just a quick word on Jetro Willems before I move on to the Crystal Palace preview. So this week there have been reports in Germany that his club would be willing to let him head back for a small loan fee. Now for me, it's pretty much a no-brainer. I think he offers quality. I think up until his injury last season, he was one of our best players, and he likes to go forward. If he stays fit until the summer, perhaps we could sign him on a free. I think it's a really good deal. And I think Jamal Lewis is clearly a young, promising lad, but he has a lot to learn. And the two of them, they'll just strengthen the left side. So yeah, I'd be pretty happy to have Jetro back on Tyneside. What about you guys? Let me know in the comments section below. Right, let's talk about the Crystal Palace game, which is actually tomorrow, Friday. And I've said this before, but I'm not too keen on these Friday fixtures, but what can you do? Here's a quick injury update as of today. So Andy Carroll, he's definitely been ruled out with a calf injury. Honestly, I'm not overly concerned with this. His absence, it doesn't make too much of a difference in my opinion. I think last season I was at ease at his pay per play arrangement, but this season, knowing he's on a decent weekly wage with constant injuries and below par performances, I just wish we were a bit more economical with his deal. It seems like a lot of money to go on such an unreliable asset. Okay, so in the Chelsea game, when he came on for ASM in the last 15 minutes, he managed one attempt that was deflected wide, but overall in 20 odd appearances, not one goal. I guess gone are the days when his absence is a blow to our team. Dwight Gale, on the other hand, I've been really impressed actually with him this year, particularly after lockdown. And he has been training after recovering from his injury, but I did read today that it's unlikely he'll be starting tomorrow. It will be just a little bit too early for him. So I'm looking forward to seeing him back in action at some point soon. Good news on Callum Wilson though. He's back from that hamstring injury, and Steve Bruce, he said, as we speak now, he is fit and he's trained all week. And I'm just so glad. I'm glad that Callum Wilson wasn't risked against Chelsea. As I said last week, it's pretty apparent we're going to be overly reliant on him to get goals this season. And if he does pick up a serious injury, I genuinely think we'll be heading down the league table as a result. As it is, we're not even defensively resilient at the moment. So to lose our talisman as well, it would just be an enormous blow. Steve Bruce also said today that Jonjo Shelvey and Matt Ritchie are available for selection for the Crystal Palace game. And I'm pretty pleased with that, especially Matt Ritchie. I am a fan of his attitude, his leadership skills, and his strong presence on the pitch. It seems Ryan Fraser, he's still unavailable, and Jamal Lascelles, he is a doubt. Also, I'm really confused about this unnamed trio of Newcastle players that allegedly are isolating with COVID symptoms. Steve Bruce doesn't want to name anyone. I guess we'll just have to await developments on that. I can't work out who it could be. So that's the latest on Newcastle injuries going into tomorrow's game. Let's move on to our opposition. Well, Crystal Palace only actually played on Monday and they lost 1-0 to Burnley. They were without Wilfried Zaha, who has tested positive for COVID, and they didn't seem to cope very well without him actually. I also think given the tight schedule, it's pretty beneficial to us that their players have only had a few days of rest, you know, and they're currently placed 11th in the league standings. As of Friday, they'll still be missing Wilfried Zaha, who obviously, you know, he's a key player for them. He's a real threat. He has bags of pace, and we're pretty lucky to be up against them without him. I remember the problems he caused us in February. I went for that game at Selhurst Park and it was honestly, it was just awful game. Crystal Palace had like 9 shots on target, we had 2, it ended 1-0, and I think in the dying minutes, Bentaleb got a red card. Ugh, bad memories. Fun build up though, I'll insert a video now. So for tomorrow, I think given that we're on 2 consecutive defeats, if things don't majorly change up in terms of our setup, I mean, I just don't see any chance of improving. That being said, actually, if trends are anything to go by this season, we are due a good performance. I mean, I don't know. It's extremely difficult to even make predictions when we endure such inconsistent results week in, week out, no sign of establishing a trusty starting 11, criticism just piling up. In terms of predictions, I guess it's a safe bet to say 1-1. I mean, if we're lucky enough to win a penalty, I do feel pretty assured that Callum Wilson would be able to convert it. So yeah, I mean, Callum Wilson being available really bumps up the likelihood of playing any form of attacking football. I just hope he's not too isolated really, because that does make it an even more frustrating watch. I think I'll leave it at that. What are your predictions going into the game? Let me know in the comment section below, and thanks a lot for watching. I guess I'll see you next time. Bye!